What's the cringiest thing you've seen a bride and groom do for their wedding? At a classmate's wedding. They were young, maybe like 22, 23. There is apparently a caking tradition in some parts of the country where when they cut the wedding cake, the couple feed each other a bit and smear each other's faces with cake as a joke. The bride had absolutely made 1000% clear to the groom she did not want to be caked. He did it anyways, and not just a small smear, but full on smushed the slice in her face. She was stunned initially, then got up, face full of cake, yelled, "You arsehole, I told you not to do that," and then ran to a back area in the reception. The groom tried to follow, but the bridesmaid/mother of the bride stopped him. So he sat at the head table awkwardly, while half the wedding party rushed off with the bride. She stayed back there for like an hour. They eventually did let him back there to check on her. We could hear her crying and them arguing. The rest of the reception came to a screeching halt until one of the bride's aunts emerged and directed the servers to clear the tables and put on some music. This seems to be a fairly common predictor if partners aren't on the same page about the cake thing, and the one who thinks it's funny disregards their new spouse's feelings on the matter. It's a bad sign for the longevity of the marriage. Definitely. My wife and I didn't want cake smashed in our faces, and we didn't want to be goaded into it by guests because they wanted some dumb picture. So we eliminated the potential problem entirely by having wedding pies instead. You guys smashed pies into each other's faces? That sounds so much worse. Happened at my niece's wedding. Her new husband full on shoved that cake in her face and she lost it. Almost exactly what you described, except she never got over it. From that point forward for the rest of the night she was in tears or screaming in rage. The wedding was literally ruined. A lot of people left when it became obvious that it had turned into a big shit show. I spent most of the reception outside smoking pot with various guests young and old, so that was kind of fun. They're still married. Haha, some of my fondest family get-together memories are of sneaking off to get stoned with my cousins. Inevitably members of the old guard would come up to us, "Hey, have you kids been smoking that dope? I can smell it." Say, "Do you have any more?" I never got the whole cake to the face thing. Oh, so we spend way too much on my hair and makeup for this special day and you're gonna throw cake in it? Also, your first act as a husband is to disrespect my reasonable request. Get TF out to here. My cousin was around 13 at my wedding and got really upset we didn't do the cake thing since we did it at birthdays and even Christmas. I suggested she volunteer as tribute, so now there is a really cute picture of her covered in cake and blackberry frosting in my wedding album, and I didn't have to ruin my makeup. My dad's mother and stepfather owned a bar restaurant back in the 60s that hosted the occasional wedding reception. At one such reception, the husband caked the wife, even as she was asking him not to, knowing he would do it. When he did, a fist fight broke out between the newlyweds that soon involved much of the wedding. As far as I know, they were married for a long time after, but you just gave me a flashback to my wedding. My brother-in-law is super awkward and doesn't understand emotional boundaries. He likes to inject himself into other people's emotional moments to sing, always a Ben Folds song, or whatever. Takes videos of people, so he can edit a cheesy video together later as a gift, that kind of thing. My husband and I had a small wedding, and agreed to no maid of honor or best man, because it was a pretty non-traditional event. So after we said our vows we joined the crowd for a toast from our officiant, which was fantastic. Until after the toast, guess who pushed his way up to the front, pulls out a huge notebook, and then proceeds to roast my new husband with weird jokes that no one got, and even my husband had forgotten about, or didn't know what he was talking about for the most part. Luckily my sisters encouraged him down, and then got up to give an impromptu joint speech inviting everyone to the buffet. The worst part is he made my new father-in-law record it and sent the speech to us afterwards as a gift. I don't think we saved that video. Oh bless him. My now ex-husband and I had a family friend with somewhat marked autism type social behaviors and a functioning IQ that put him somewhere in his early teens developmentally. Real sweetheart, and we loved him to death. He told us he wanted to give a speech at our wedding, so we arranged for a family dinner type of thing at our house a few nights prior to the wedding, and he gave us his speech there. It was a good call, because although he meant well, and with our carefully curated audience, we all laughed and enjoyed the sentiment. However, it was almost entirely well-rehearsed dirty sex jokes. Bride shows up almost 2 hours late to her own wedding. Southern California in an open field, no water, no shade. She shows up and wants to get married in her yoga outfit. The groom shut it down, and when she refused to change her clothes, the groom decided to leave her looking stupid, and they never got married. Edit. I spoke with my uncle, and it turns out he had speculation that his fiancée was sleeping with her personal trainer. When she showed up in her yoga outfit, it was all he needed to call off the wedding. She ended up married to her personal trainer in a reception line. After the church wedding ceremony, the bride had a large bottle of her favorite perfume and sprayed each guest with it, female and male, whether they wanted it or not, as they entered the banquet hall. Some guests complained that the smell of perfume was so strong that they lost their appetite and couldn't partake of the banquet. This biz is so easy. I worked on my phone during my wedding. Doesn't that sound like FINANCIALF re-edom to you? Obligatory plug for r/Antim. They sang their vows to each other. Neither had a singing voice. Vows were generally batshit crazy, like submissive in the bedroom and not asking about where she was going. The auto-tune microphones were a terrible idea. Their vow songs shared a chorus, and it was awful, and they expected the guests to sing along with the chorus. The vows singing lasted 20 minutes. Pure cringe. Everclear, my friend. The groom sang his vows. I honestly had to stare at the floor and slow breath to not laugh and get through it. My cousin did this. He played the guitar while singing his vows. He doesn't know how to play the guitar or sing. Thank fuck there wasn't a guitar, because I may have had a stroke. I went to one where the bride sang a song immediately after walking down the aisle. It was very strange, but she was a good singer at least. Okay, I had forgotten about this because it was about 25 years ago, but I went to a wedding where the bride did something similar. The thing was, she was so nervous she actually threw up before singing her song right there at the front of the church. Luckily she'd moved off to the side to sing. They had set up a separate little stage there. So she threw up, sang her song, someone ran in and cleaned it up pretty quickly, and then they did the vows. The funny part is we all kind of moved on, didn't think about it during the ceremony at all, which went really well, until the kiss. Then the whole crowd groaned in unison. Invite all their Facebook friends and expect 700 people, and like less than 100 show up. A guy knew a couple who didn't specifically invite anyone, just made like a public event on FB or somehow assumed people would know when/where it was and show up. They were confused and offended when almost nobody came. I wasn't a guest, I was working the wedding. The bride got drunk and sat on some other dude's lap for 2 hours and flirted with him, while the groom sat by himself at the head table with a defeated look on his face. Not the groom and bride's fault, but the pastor marrying them talked about his marriage and his kids for 20 minutes. He was obviously going for something of showing what marriage will be like, but he full up was talking about how his daughter, Kelsey, learned to walk this way, and his other daughter's first words were this and that he and his wife make love throughout the house, because that's what you do when in love, etc. Bride and groom had to stand there holding hands for 20 minutes right in front of him as the other 150 of us had to listen about his sex life and his kids. Oh god, you just reminded me of an acquaintance I knew. Didn't go to the wedding, but heard from a mutual friend who was there, where the pastor marrying them told the couple to divorce their friends under the promise that it would make them a stronger couple or some shit like that. And they followed that advice. So pretty much after the wedding and reception, they just never again talked to any of the friends they had invited to celebrate their big moment. I thought they would be divorced within a year, but turns out that they are still together. But yeah, apparently married couples aren't allowed to have friends. Things. I was like, oh, that's cute. But then the list kept going. LMAO. When I was in high school, one of my hockey teammates had a kid with his girlfriend when they were juniors. They decided to get married, and the wedding was officiated by my teammate's dad, who also happened to be our head coach. The entire wedding was the bride and groom's direct family and the hockey team at a Golden Corral. Then the reception was at the same Golden Corral. Then we had a hockey game that night. The other team we played that night somehow found out about it and hounded the guy the whole time. They were a bunch of dicks. Now about 7 years later that have a second kid. Dad is an officer in the Air Force. Both of his kids play hockey, and he coaches, and refs and him, and his wife look very happy, so I'm glad it all worked out for them. Edit. For all of you asking about the game, I honestly don't remember if we won. Hockey season's a long one with a lot of games, and it was 7 to 8 years ago. And as a side note, I really did not mean for this to be a rip on the couple. They're amazing together and doing an awesome job raising their kids in a loving household where they want for nothing. They haven't had the easiest lives, but they're doing the best they can and absolutely killing it. I haven't spoken to him in a while, but I've seen his dad, our old coach, at alumni games, and they're such an awesome family. They're the perfect example of the fact that you don't need a giant, expensive fancy ass wedding to be happy. As long as you have each other, family, and friends, it's a joyous occasion that should be celebrated. I've worked over 200 weddings at the same venue. Many couples wanted fireworks, and we had a company that could always do a show. The couple always, without fail, would pick Firework by Katy Perry to play during the show. Maybe you're not getting it. See, the song is called Firework, and they play it when there are literal fireworks going off. It's actually super clever and original. You just have to spend a few minutes thinking about it to get it. Point, I think you're onto something there. That does make a lot of sense. I've had an idea that might go along with it while we are thinking about it. What if we use the Beyoncé song Single Ladies to play during the bouquet toss? You know, because only the single ladies would be trying to catch it. I had an 8th grade student die of cancer, and they played this at her funeral. That's all I can think about when I hear the song. My brother requested, let it be sung at his funeral. At least now when I hear it, I think of him. I've worked over 200 weddings at the same venue. Many couples wanted fireworks, and we had a company that could always do a show. The couple always, without fail, would pick Firework by Katy Perry to play during the show. That sucks. I'm a vet tech, and we turn all music off during pet euthanasia, so owners never relate a song they may hear to their pet dying. I'm so sorry you have to go through that. Edit. Just to clarify guys, this isn't just something that I or even my clinic does. This is a very common courtesy in veterinary clinics. The ceremony also was the name reveal. They changed their last name because they didn't want to be stuck to their heritage and didn't want anything to hold them back. Turns out they changed their name thinking they could erase their mountains of debt or at least hide from it. Turns out you can't live under two legal identities. I've known a few couples who've changed their name to something distinct that is neither partner's original last name, but they meant it as a symbol of their relationship, not a way of hiding from a credit rating. Oh, I have to. 1. The bride decided to sing as she walked down the aisle. She was not a particularly talented singer, and she was singing over a Carrie Underwood song, so we could all hear the original vocal track. She finished walking about halfway through the song, and then stood there and sang the rest of the song at the groom, and all we could do was sit there and watch. 2. Different wedding. They began the wedding with the groom playing an out-of-tune guitar and singing to the bride. They were sitting on chairs in front of everyone, legit 400 people, and the bride was clearly uncomfortable, which made everyone else uncomfortable. That wedding also included a foot washing ceremony, and when the bride put her shoes back on, she tripped on her dress and fell flat on her face. They hadn't done the vows yet, and the ceremony stopped for 20 minutes to deal with the nosebleed she gave herself. Is the foot washing ceremony a cultural thing? I've never heard of that. Just curious. It's religious. Comes from when Jesus washed his disciples' feet. I'm a pretty devout Christian, and even I find the ceremony awkward. Tell me the Carrie Underwood song was before he cheats. That's a great wedding song. Bride takes 3 hours to appear. After the ceremony, she and her spouse go up in an air balloon. The marriage did not last a year. Well, aside from the 2 hours late part, that could be cool. So one of the 3 hours counts as the normal lateness quota? My cousin and his wife are super religious and maybe the two most awkward people I've ever met. They did one of those fake out first dances, where it starts with a slow song then transitions to a dance number with an upbeat song. Not only is that naturally cringe-worthy, the upbeat song was 5 minutes long, and they just kept repeating the same moves over and over for what felt like eternity. There was no alcohol allowed at the wedding, so there was nothing to dull the pain. That reminds me of my cousin's wedding. The pastor made the ceremony into more of a Sunday sermon than a wedding ceremony. Then when they finally got to "I now pronounce you man and wife," instead of kissing the bride, groom, parents and 3 or 4 random people suddenly stood up, held hands on a circle, and had a silent prayer for several minutes, while everyone was confused about what was happening. Also, it was a dry reception. I saw one guy with a beer, but he must have brought it himself, because I looked around and couldn't find any. When I was 11, my cousin got married for the 3rd time. I never really liked her because A, she was 37 when I was 11, we didn't have a lot in common, and B, she was pretty full of herself. The wedding itself was fine, pretty boring but fine. Then we get to the reception. We were told we had to sit down. As soon as we got there, some people found it weird, but I've only been to one other wedding before this. Her other marriages were when I was little. No kids were allowed at her weddings, so I didn't think anything of it. The bride and groom then make a huge dramatic entrance and everyone awkwardly clapped for them as they strutted around the room with actual crowns on their heads. The bride then gets the microphone and hands it to her mom and asks her to say something she loves about the bride. She then tells her mom to pass it on and says she wants everyone in the room to say one thing they absolutely love about the bride. Not the bride and groom, not their relationship, just the bride herself. It was super awkward. Edit. This blew up a lot more than I thought it would. Lol. So for everyone asking what did you say and where is she now, I said your Aisha is pretty, because I felt so awkward and wanted to die. My older brother said pass, which made her force a fake laugh and urge him to say something. He ignored it and she kept insisting, so he said your parents and passed the mic on. She and husband 3 divorced a few months later because he was caught cheating with an 18-year-old still in high school. He gave off bad pedo vibes to the point where even strangers noticed and wanted kids to stay away from him. She married another guy a few years later and they are still together. Bonus, she likes to take pictures with a life-size cutout of Trump and post it on Facebook because she, her mom, and sister believe it looks so real. Nope. And she even pretends she's being caught cheating on husband with cutout, posting pictures of her kissing it or it in her room with a caption like "oops, caught with my side piece" or some cringe like that. Husband is also a hard Trump supporter, so he laughs about it, but her daughter, from marriage too, deleted her from Facebook and often stays with her dad because she can't stand her mom anymore. Flew away in a helicopter at the end, but there were only appetizers for food. Wrong priorities. To be honest, I've been to quite a few weddings where we stop for fries on the way home because of small quantities or reasons not to eat the main course, such as elegance over flavor. Somehow a lot of people seem to think that fish is elegant for weddings, but there's a lot of people who dislike fish, or, like my boyfriend, are allergic to it. My own wedding, so me. My brother and our wedding band surprised us with a beautiful rendition of a very romantic song by a guy called Juan Luis Gura. Just so happened to be me and the Miss Us favorite song ever. Lots of happy crying, and one of the best memories from that day. Unfortunately, my Miel doesn't like to be one-upped, so she impromptu got a distant second cousin from her side of the family who we did not know to immediately sing "My Heart Will Go On" from Titanic. He was not a good singer and used a shitty YouTube karaoke track, and it led to very awkward slow dancing, followed by fuming from her after we cut it short. Terrible feedback from trying to play the track on the mic from phone speaker. Just completely deflated the beautiful moment from my brother singing. At least I'm happy to say we are still going strong and have been married for 10 years now. It should go without saying that little poop nugget of singing was not included in our wedding video. Edit. Wow, this really blew up. My biggest comment in Reddit yet. To those who asked, this is the song. https://www.youtube.com/watch v=5 Terrible feedback from trying to play the track on the mic from phone speaker Mayo. Imagine not refusing to go sing in this situation. Mil must have threatened second cousin with something good. I married into a musical family. This sounds like such a sweet gift from your brother. My brother-in-law was forced to sing by his pushy wife after my husband and mother-in-law sang together in place of a mother-son dance. The brother-in-law didn't want to do it. I listened to her twist his arm about it. He apologized to me after, and I just told him he owed me a dance. I was raised a Jehovah's Witness. It's a cult. Dating is only allowed to find a marriage partner, and was very monitored to ensure no premarital touching occurred. Worst wedding was a small ceremony. It was literally her family, his family and my family in her grandma's living room. What made it the worst was the XXX kiss at the end. The groom wanted the bride inside his mouth hardcore. There was tongue in and out everywhere, saliva and hot breathing, complete with first date excited groping. Nobody knew where to look for 5 minutes. JWs have the worst weddings and funerals. Honestly, I dread attending them. My husband left the cult about 10 years before I met him, but he still has lots of JW family, of course. Surprisingly, they haven't cut him off, probably because some of them rely on him financially. Sorry to blab on, it's a major thorn in my life. During the wedding of some friends of my wife, the groom stopped the party to put a corny video with their photos. Since the first time they met until then, it doesn't sound that bad, but honestly it was the most ridiculous video with a totally out of place song, made worse by the fact that the bride was laughing mockingly and taking tequila shots with her friends. The crazy bitch bride entrance no one knew about edit, NSFW. Kinda thought the words crazy bitch in the link would clarify that, but in case you need more warning, here it is. In love with the shock and confusion on that dad's face in the front. When he hugged his kid and was like, please God don't marry someone like this when you get old.